Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two you've read. I'm your host Scott and I'm not alone, Toby's here too. This episode we're talking about The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. It's going to be a pretty spoiler heavy episode, so if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side. Put up for an award at work of excellence in the field of Toby?
In the field of behind the scenes faculty unsung member hero of the year, something or other, something like that. So I was nominated. Yes. So, but whether I make it to the final, you've won, or top 10, I don't know yet. We'll find out later this month, I think.
Oh, very cool.
But still, yeah, it's pleasant, nice to be nominated and recognised for the hard work that you put in, and to do it without actually going around pestering students to nominate you is also, it makes it more rewarding.
Oh, okay. So you were put forward by your students, you think? Well, you know.
Yeah, it could be academics, it could be students, it could be anyone. Just the fact that I didn't go out going, hey, there's this award thing, can you nominate me? Because I'd really like to win. Which other members of people that have done? And
okay.
Kind of uncouth to take that approach.
It's not really unsung hero if you're singing yourself, arguably.
Yeah, exactly that. So,
do any of your co-workers who do that listen to this podcast?
I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with it if you do.
There isn't, but it's just there's a one-upmanship in it if you do it without actually asking to do it.
I guess it takes away I don't know.
Yeah, it cheapens the whole thing. For me, anyway.
Well, let's hope they don't listen to this.
I haven't shared it or told anyone at work, though. I've kept it on the DL.
Oh, okay.
Because, just don't want to blow my own trumpet or anything.
Nice.
If I win, that'll be enough trumpet blowing for me. I'll get up on stage and go, fuck it.
That's strutting and do a rap.
Yeah, peacocking. But yeah, no, other than that, my week's been very quiet. Again, we're getting into sort of the last throes of university life before we hit the summer period. So everybody's winding down. All workshops are coming to an end. I've got like stragglers that still haven't picked up a camera yet. And you're like, how have you, what do you mean you're in your third year and you haven't picked up a camera?
Oh, God. Are those the ones who just want in for the production?
Yeah, they're just always piggybacking off of somebody else's production. So they're always in the peripheral, never have to book out or never have to do any training. They've slipped through the cracks numerous times, like, I don't know, wily fish. But somehow I've caught them in the net.
That seems a little odd for me. Just purely because I think I did like arguably 4 different media degrees. People are vying for that equipment. The equipment's the fun thing, the cameraing. Everyone wanted to be the cameraman.
Yeah, that's not the case
likes
here.
To get their hands on the technology. That's sort of a key part of it, from my experiences.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But that doesn't seem to be the case across the board. There are many students who will quite happily sit in the background and do nothing and just coast as long as possible.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. The smart ones.
It's well, yeah. Interesting. It's just, different strokes, different folks, all that sort of thing. It's quite interesting.
One more question. Yeah. So you've been in it a few years now. Do you follow up with any of your earliest students? Like, how are the careers going? One of them's producing on GMTV or something.
Yes, some of them. Some of them are mega successful singers and have got pop careers now. They do media courses.
You told me about that one.
You've got one that's just finished a boxing match against some TikToker.
Oh, okay.
Anisan Gibb. He is big on the KSI sidemen scene. He's involved in all of that. And he was a student that did 2 months with us, but left because his FIFA career on YouTube was taking off and he didn't have time to come to the course.
Wow.
And now he's boxing Jake Paul and mixing with Logan Paul and all that sort of stuff. So massive, huge following on the internet and doing really well for himself.
Is that, so we probably should wrap this up or get a book later, but like, do you feel that whole world of kids becoming influencers I just don't really work with any of the youth of today. So it's always a bit of a joke for me about, I'll read somewhere like, oh, kids just want to be influencers. But I just realized you probably actually have to deal with that a lot. Like the kids will take that opportunity over studying
Yeah, well,
example.
but the thing is, you've got what you've got to remember is it's a valid form of media and consumption, even more so than say films are, because people consume it daily, minutely, hourly, whereas they don't do that with films. They don't do that with television. You know, how
Mm,
often do you look at your phone and flick up? That
mm.
is a valid form of creation, of art expression, of things. Like, you know, there are numerous platforms to promote yourself on, and it's just about accepting that that is a new way of consuming art or
I'm not
TikToks
gonna
or
lie. I
whatever.
don't know if I'm gonna put it in the art category myself just
Well,
yet.
that yeah, but
Definitely the entertainment. I guess the
yeah,
fear that,
entertainment. Yeah,
like,
I
I could
guess you
see
call it
why
entertainment.
parents, for example, would rather not, purely
Mm,
just because it's kind of fickle. It's the equivalent of, like, I'm going to be in our age. I guess the examples would be, I'm just going to be a big actor, or I'm going to be a rock star. It kind of
uh-huh.
feels like the lucky few. I feel like we've had this
Mm,
conversation before, but, like, you know what I mean?
no.
You sort of get chosen. It's not really necessarily about talent or hard work to an
It's
extent.
it is large. Obviously, same for film. You know, like we talked about the 1% of people making it because they're good looking. It's the
Mm,
same with this. If you're good looking or you've got assets that you can flaunt, then you're going to float to the top. But some people, through hard graft, do make it if they've got a good voice, if they've got a real passion for a subject. But what I was getting at was they still need the skills that you learn in university to understand the effort, the pre-production, the post-production, the creation of art,
mm.
understanding beginning, middles, and ends, and how to convey a story to an audience, and all those sorts of things come into play largely in becoming an influencer.
Right. I guess there's the fine line for me. Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what counts as successful or not. I don't know if, like, is 11,000 followers, for example, a lot or not? Does that mean you can make money from it? I have
Not
no
really, no,
idea.
no.
I guess the only sort of base I have is that when I was listening to two book people on YouTube, I guess they're vloggers who are in
Mm.
the top five in the book world. I think Daniel Green is the most, like, the biggest book reviewer, and it wasn't him. It was like, I don't know, 4 and 5 or 5 and 6, and
Yeah,
they talked about basically going full time, which means giving up their job,
yeah,
which means they don't. And they post a lot. And one of them just said the problem is, you have to let go of all health or holiday pay, any pay right. Like, you can't stop if you become,
mm-hmm.
I guess, freelance and go full time, and you lose every
Yeah,
benefit. And he said you probably have to do about 3 videos a day.
mm-hmm.
Obviously, depending on what your niche is, but obviously, if you're a book guy, it's like, God, I mean, you've got to read. I've got to
Yeah,
read the books, review the
that's one of the
books,
problems I
and
have.
take time out to put
Mm-hmm.
poppy things. I guess now with the YouTube Shorts and the TikTok, it's like, yeah, but some of those could be like 13 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It can be like a teaser clip or something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which
So
does
I
seem.
feel like there are valid forms of expression, but they do take effort. It's very rare that just by showing up you're going to make it.
But I do for any different. I do understand the amount of hard. But this little podcast we do, where we get out an episode less than once a month with no visuals, just recording on a one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
interview, takes hours to get an episode out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So to all the influencers, little content makers, big and small, kudos to you.
Yes,
It's
indeed.
hard
Kudos to
work
you.
that
Go to
goes.
university, learn your grounding, and then use
Mm,
that to further yourself. Right, we are here to talk about The Thursday Murder Club
mm-hmm,
by Richard Osman.
mm-hmm.
Those who know Richard Osman, do you know who Richard Osman is, Scott?
So Toby's read this book. I haven't for this episode. I did a little backstory. I did recognize him,
Mm-hmm.
and he is like a TV wit, like a sort
Mm.
of comedy brain. I'm sort of recognize him. I get the feeling I've seen him, like, shift around on other panel shows that I would have
Yes,
watched. Sometimes you
indeed.
see the same faces just
Yes.
circling all the different panel
The,
shows.
the circuit, the
Um,
1%.
and he's in one. He's a key host of one of those.
Yeah, Pointless. I believe he is the voice and face of Pointless, which I've seen a couple of episodes of over
Mm,
the years. My understanding of who Richard Osman is and his comedy and his wit is
mm,
based off of what I've seen on television. And I've kind of been like, yeah, okay, he's got charm, he's got charisma. I don't really know if he's the funniest person I've ever heard talk or anything like that. It'd be interesting to read something of his.
mm.
So I think this is his first book. is my understanding. The Thursday Murder Club, and there's now been two other sequels to this since its release. I'll give you the synopsis first of all, just so that everybody's on the same page, so to speak. In a peaceful retirement village, 4 unlikely friends meet up once a week to investigate unsolved murders. But when a brutal killing takes place on their very doorstep, the Thursday Murder Club find themselves in the middle of their first live case. Elizabeth, Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron might be pushing 80, but they still have a few tricks up their sleeve. Can our unorthodox but brilliant gang catch the killer before it's too late? Question mark.
Nice.
Before we start, let me just ask you a question. What makes a good whodunit, detective novel, detective show, drama for you, Scott? What defines that?
It's fine. You just expanded the question. Yesterday was like, what makes a good murder mystery?
Yeah. In essence, that's the succinct version of that question, but
it's true.
Dramatic purposes.
If I think to probably my favorite, I'm not a huge crime reader. I've read a couple, and I'm not against them, but I just don't necessarily gravitate to them. I've read a couple of like Joe Nesbo's, which is, I guess, very. Is he right?
It's more thriller, though, isn't he, rather than crime?
Well, the Snowman and stuff like that. I'd say he's like a detective, Harry. Within the American movie, he became Harry Hole.
Yeah.
Within the novels, it's pronounced Harry Holy because he's Scandinavian. I guess we'll get onto this. The whole Scandinavian dark crime has just exploded over the last 10 years and sort of become more prevalent than, say, hard-boiled. For me, a prime murder mystery is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Okay.
I was there a little after the huge rush. Everyone I knew had already read it who was going to read it. So it was just me running around going, have you read this? It's really good. Like trying to voice that same enthusiasm when everyone else in the world was trying to move on. And the setup is just like the perfect titillation of what a mystery should be. And for me, I want it to be simple enough to understand the pure concept. Like you could explain it on the back of a book.
Yeah.
There's a very rich little island that has one bridge on off it.
Yeah.
And someone went missing. And on that day, that bridge was closed. So it had to be someone in there. But these people are like sort of very rich millionaires. So they've hired detectives, like every avenue has been exhausted. And now 15 years have passed. So those kind of locked room mysteries where like it's a fun little mystery that is summed up quite simply. I'm not saying the explanation has to be simple.
Yeah.
But I want it to be a nice, neat question that doesn't keep...
Right.
I'm trying to think of a bad example.
Would you say that locked room idea is that all your culprits or the people that you have a suspect eye trained on are clear and present pretty much from the get-go, and it's then just about unraveling all the puzzles.
Yeah, I think all the clues...
Oh, it could be this person, or it could be this person, or this person's definitely going to be this person, so on and so forth, and you bouncing around as a narrative is setting up sort of pointers or red herrings and twists and turns.
I think all the clues need to be there, and for me, quite clear that they're clues. This is a film, not a book. I'm pretty sure it's not based on a book. But have you seen the film Snake Eyes? It's like a Brian De Palma movie.
With Nicolas Cage.
Nick Cage and Louis Guzman. And I really like it. It's all set around an assassination in a boxing arena.
Yes.
And once the assassination happens, the arena's locked down. And it's just big crowd of like rustling people, and this detective's trying to figure it out live. It's almost like an as-live movie. It's about 2 hours long, and the time span of it is 2 hours long.
Real time, yeah.
And when we get to the why, it's like something that's not within our movie. It's a complete tangent of like, I was in the military and they cut funding and my boys died. And I just thought, well, you haven't given us this in the movie, from my recollection. And I just felt a bit robbed that you've just made something up. I guess you can argue it's the what's the suitcase called in the movies? The MacGuffin. But I just felt a bit robbed of a nice, neat murder mystery.
Yes. Okay, that's exactly the answer I was looking for. Review roundup. Such a beacon of pleasure. Kate Atkinson, who is also an author.
Yeah, I recognise her.
Compelling mystery fans are going to be enthralled. Harlan Coben.
Oh, another mystery, a bigwig.
It's addictive, highly entertaining, and far from pointless. The Daily Mail.
No, far from pointless. That's a weird one.
Well, he did the Pointless TV game show,
Oh,
didn't he?
wah, wah, wah.
Daily Mail, yeah, exactly. So reader reviews, positives. Mrs. S.J. Sampson gives it 4 stars out of 5. What a treat this book has been. The Thursday Murder Club has filled a famous 5-shaped void in my adult life that I hadn't realised was there. Okay, so there are only 4 members of this amateur crime-busting cabal, no dog yet, and the ginger ale has been replaced by pricey bottles of Malbec, and the bones may be creakier than my beloved childhood gang, but the daring do, the charm, the well-meaning bickering, and the fabulous ability to outsmart the rozzers are heartily present.
Nice.
Book Fiend. 4 stars. Set in a retirement home, this is a slightly formulaic but fun story that is quick to read and quite entertaining. The central characters are well depicted and believable, and the story unfolds easily, partly told through one character's diary and partly through third person. It's a bit Marigold Hotel, but very easy read and good one for a journey. Not very deep or thought-provoking, but good stuff all the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I just say, put a pin in that Marigold Hotel comment?
This is some negatives.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly Fox, on the other hand, failed first book, 1 star.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Stings,
she don't hold back.
stings.
And she goes even further to say, don't buy.
Oh,
But she then underpins that entire first opening with, I read the first 5 pages and I absolutely had to stop. I actually placed the book in my recycle bin. Any reference to Agatha Christie, oh my God, OMG, either the editor of this manuscript didn't do his or her job, or something else went wrong. This book should never have been published. Simple language in combination with writing that cannot build a decent plot, you should find in a detective story.
I don't know if I can count this. 5 pages? That's like watching 5
That's exactly why I put it in there. Yeah, this is show. Yeah.
Kelly Fox, I don't know. I'm happy with bad opinions. I've
got one more for you.
Right, you go.
J.M. Davis, 3 stars. This book received a lot of publicity before it went on sale, and I was really looking forward to reading it. At times, I found the story a little confusing, and at times, it did not flow easily. The close cooperation of the 2 police officers seemed rather unlikely and unprofessional. Totally agree with that. I came to dislike the character of Elizabeth very much. Not so much agree with that. And the end seemed a bit rushed and weak. I'm not sure I will read the sequel.
Oh, that sounds like they just had concerns. Like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I want to ask that person questions. Like, were you on your commute reading or on a beach or holiday reading? Like, did you feel like your time was wasted because of where you were, for example? But it's fine, obviously not to like books. Do you count reviews of someone who didn't consume the material?
No, I just thought it was hilarious that review, that she hated it so much after the first 5 pages.
Yeah, I guess there was a lot of setup for stuff that, like, what the novel wasn't set up, but in 5 pages, that's a lot.
Yes, of course, it's not going to be set up in 5 pages. Yeah, completely. So my thoughts on this book mirror a lot of what has gone on there, the positives and the negatives.
Okay.
And I go back to, so now we're getting to spoiler warnings, everybody. So my takeaway is, did I enjoy the book? Yes. Would I read the sequel? Yes. Do I recommend you rush to the shops and buy it? No. If you stumble across it in a charity shop or a Kelly's recycle bin, grab it and take it home with you and maybe give it a read.
Like, this is a library book, not a buy book. Like, you don't
definitely 100% agree with that. But there is potential with these characters going forward. Okay, spoiler warning. So going back to what we were saying about setting up a great crime novel, and as a reader, what I look for in a good crime novel, and what this novel distinctly lacked, was enough crumbs, enough pointers for me to start to piece together who it's going to be. I had my thoughts, but none of them came to fruition, because the reason, and the sole reason, is because you're introduced to the killer in the last 2 chapters.
Oh, okay. So there's no way to
deduct that person. There's no way to deduct it. It's a completely off-screen murderer. There's facets that flow throughout that sort of tie things together, but it all unravels in the last 2 pages. and none of it alludes to what you've read before. It's almost a total tangent.
Like we said about the snake eyes. It's the snake eyes.
Exactly that. It's a subplot to what is the rest of the book, which is unfortunate because I did enjoy some of the elements that the four characters bring to the story, like especially the opening when the first murder happens. Oh no, actually it's before the first murder happens. There's this young detective called Donna DeFreyes. She's a sort of up-and-coming young detective in this new, and she's a woman, so she's struggling to make her own, like, grasp a foot in the detective agency. She wants to hunt serial killers.
The sort of sexism is that she has to prove herself more than her male
That's exactly
counterparts.
it. So she's pencil pushing and all this sort of thing, and given the menial task, but she wants to be out there hunting serial killers. And one of her tasks is to go to retirement homes and talk about the importance of locking your windows and security. And it's just dry and boring.
So community work.
But she goes to the Chase Retirement Village, which is where these four Thursday Murder Club people situated, and they are just, let's talk about crime. Let's talk about crime. We don't want to talk about windows. Exactly. That's happened in the first 20 pages, and it was really funny. I was like, oh, this looks like it's going to be really good. And then that was the end of the comedy, and it becomes very much sort of the four of them sneaking out and doing some like detective work in London, going through library work and backing through using the internet and all that sort of thing. And it just it didn't have that sense of humour that the first 20 pages brought to it, which I really enjoyed. You know, old busybodies sort of getting and sticking their noses in where it's not wanted and all that, like sort of stuff.
Playing up to their characters of old people to sneak through the sort of Louis Theroux Borat, like, I'm just bumbling, I'm
I don't really know what they're doing,
and then actually like very astute.
There are elements of that, but most of it's driven by Elizabeth, who is obviously the ex-spy. She's definitely the driving force of the Thursday Murder Club. And then you've got Ibrahim, who's a retired psychiatrist, and Ron. They're just kind of in the background, part of the group. They chip in every so often, and they go, oh, but it could be this person. This is why I think it could be this person. And then there's like, it could be that person. And there's a lot of this, but it turns out it's none of the people that they're talking about because it's somebody off camera. And then you've got Joyce, who is this sort of very quiet, unassuming little old lady that's joined late, has slowly sort of built up her confidence and is now part of the group. And she writes this diary, basically, so it sort of appears throughout every other chapter or so. That diary serves as a recap of what you've just seen and her musings on it and little pointers, like in American movies where something's very British and then the Americans need it explained to them in a dumbed down way. That's kind of what Joyce's diary does.
Okay. There's just a sort of, I guess, like exactly like you say, like a recap, like in brackets, what you should know or be aware of.
The plot centers on the murder of this guy called Tony Curran, who is a builder for the expansion of the old people's home. He gets bumped off quite early on, and that's the live case.
The builders at the old people's home, like it's a murder.
No, it's not in the complex at his house, which is a couple of miles down the road.
I'm right. It's a small community, right? It's more of like a little village.
Yes, very much so.
Quaint community village.
Yeah. So the idea is that they're going to expand this retirement village that's owned by this guy called Ian Veltman, and he is trying to get the land that surrounds the village. And there's a couple of people, stubborn elderly people, and a vicar that are very reluctant to sell up their parts of the land for his expansion. And Tony is the builder that he's hired, and they've got history together. And then so Tony gets knocked off. So you're instantly, it could be this person and it could be this person.
We instantly have several people with several motives.
People that don't want him to do these work. And there's also a graveyard up on the top of the hill that has a large part to play with the who, the what, the why. And then the person that owns the Chase complex, Ian Veltman, is also bonked off quite early on. So you've got the builder.
I've got multiple murders
linked. So you've suddenly got this web of people that could be involved.
That's what you want. We're sort of on good track right now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. And that's what it plays with throughout the whole book, for it only then to swerve left and go, oh, it's this person.
Is that person mentioned in the book? Is it like, remember we said the vicar had a cousin who immigrated to Africa
No,
because
it's
of
not.
debt
It's not like
10 years ago? That kind
It's
of.
a usual trope you see in detective novels is somebody will come in at the beginning, disappear for the most of the film, and then reappear at the end and be, "Ha it was me."
I love
That
it.
doesn't happen here.
I
That
love
does
it
not
in
happen in this.
movies where they want the killer to be someone famous because it's the killer.
Mm.
But because they're so unassuming for most of the story, I can't remember what it was, but there was a film when William H. Macy was the killer, and he was literally like an extra hanging around in the police office. And I was like, it's him, because he was too famous to be in this.
Yeah,
with nothing to do. What is he doing in here? That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You definitely should have cast an unknown or
I completely
hit him
agree.
more, right? It was like the most, I don't know, it just spiked out like crazy. And I say, what is it's just the mystery of who killed them. It's not a tantalizing mystery of like, he was in a locked room and no one could get in or out and he didn't have a gun, sort of thing. That
no, there's none of that, but there's a slight variation. So there's this really good sequence in which Tony Curran has been killed at his house. He's killed, smacked over the back of the head with a wrench, not a wench, a woman, a wrench. But then Ian Veltman is trying to
development
this development done and started and underway so that it can't be stopped, and he's pushing forward with it despite everything that's going on around him, and this causes a kerfuffle. And obviously we've got Ron, who is a sort of ex-union boss. He rallies everybody together and then takes them up the hill to where the land is going to be dug up, and they sort of put their picnic chairs out and put a bench out and get some sandwiches and block this digger that's coming up, and they're all there in front of him. And that is where the second murder happens. Ian Veltman is killed while surrounded by all of these elderly people. Yes. And all of our prime suspects are up there. And they all become prime suspects, even part of the Thursley Murder Club. So for a large part of this book, I was unsure on Joyce because she was so prevalent and but also quite unassuming and in the back. That her diary pieces were front and center. I was like, "Whoa, maybe that's the red herring that I'm looking for." She's in plain sight, but hiding.
Is the book from one person's point of view? And is it Joyce?
No. It's you've got Joyce's perspective in the sort of summing up. You've got Elizabeth, who is the driving force, and then you have the narrator, which kind of feels like Richard Osmans overriding.
Oh, okay, so it's the third person.
Yes, kind of an amalgamation of all three, which is quite clever.
I guess it sounded like Joyce was there for our purpose. Like she's the new person, right? So when they explain to her, they can explain to us.
And then she takes it away and digests it somewhat in her diary and gives you quite a short recap about what's going on. But she also gives some nice tidbits into her own life, and which I think might play more of a part in the second and third module.
It's going to develop further, as it were. Can I ask two questions about just the type of murder mysteries and how they unfold? An example, I guess, would be The Girl on the Train, in which each chapter feels like this is a suspect, and they investigate that suspect, and one by one they're eliminated. Is this the case here, where we have people being eliminated, so by the end we're pushed to the conclusion of who it is?
There is an overriding investigation that revolves around Tony Curran, Ian Veltman, Jason, another character who's a boxer, and then a fourth character who has disappeared, and everybody assumes that he's dead, but there are other people that assume he's legged the country and left.
Suspicious.
And that all those four people were tied together as sort of like a small village mafia from back in the day, and they were like very drug pushing and making money, wheeling and dealing, and have since split up, gone their own separate lives. One of them's become quite a famous boxer, and then you've got Tony, who's built a business of building, not necessarily on the straight and narrow, and then Ian Veltman, who has built and bought this complex and turned it into old people's retirement home. And there's a lot of it. A lot of the investigation early on is about a singular photo that's been left at the scene of the first murder that features them all when they were younger.
Okay, well that is gonna
yeah, and that is a large part of the investigation and the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it has nothing to do with that.
Oh, okay, so that's a red herring.
Not even a red herring. It's just it almost feels like when you get to the point where they unfold, you're like, oh, I was literally like, oh, come on.
Was the guy just holding it at the time because he was missed his friends, sort of thing?
The Tony murder is not connected to Ian's murder. They're two separate things. But you spend the whole book thinking they're together and they're part and parcel of the same murder, but they're totally separate. One of them was done by this person, and one of them was done by a person you never ever heard of until the very last minute. Which is my biggest problem with this book, is that I wanted to, because like you, I haven't read many crime novels. I've not read any Agatha Christie, but I really wanted a book that felt like a puzzle, that felt like an escape room, that gave me enough clues to be able to formulate my own opinion and be, I got it from the get-go. I was on to you straight away. Like you said with that famous actor in the background, he's too big to be on camera.
I mean, I don't think that was meant to be a clue. I think that was bad filmmaking. But certainly, I think when I get to the end of the book, I'm happy to have not figured it out, but I want to go, I could have figured it out if I was smarter.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And that is where my problems with this book lie. That's the biggest takeaway from it, is if you're going to write a murder mystery, give us enough clues to be able to solve or possibly point us in the right directions.
Do you think that was the writer's intention to sort of, you know what, I'm doing a cozy murder mystery and I'm going to go left, like subvert expectations in a certain sense?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't feel it's subverted anything. It just feels...
You're just not that happy with the explanation.
Yeah, no, it's like you're given this big setup and two crimes have been committed that you're tying them together, but in the end, they're nothing to do with each other. And one of them's part of the main crux of the book of what you've been reading, but isn't really that big a deal. And the one that you do worry about, the one that's like feels like it's got more impactful thing, is completely unraveled in the final 3 chapters, and has more weight to it as well. It's it's a more emotional resonance. You can understand a crime of passion and all of that sort of thing. That's the sort of stuff that I wanted to read about throughout the book, not in the last 3 chapters.
Oh, okay. I guess I was instantly thinking the book is going to sort of like make you think that the book is going to be about like small town politics and big development financing areas, but it comes down to a jilted lover. Like
exactly.
It's not the first time it's been done, but I always think a good example. Again, I always go to TV. Sorry, book.
No, sorry.
Send in emails of book examples. Broadchurch. All the there's that joke thing of like all the characters that we're interviewing are nice and smiley, and when we walk away, they sort of like scowl.
Yes,
that joke of okay, he's suspicious, but it's like I mean, after 3 seasons, you learn everyone's hiding something. It's just is it related to the crime in question? It's like, oh no, what he's hiding is that his son is illegitimate because he had an affair or she had an affair or something. So it's maybe sounds like that was going to come into play in this one. Does it feel like that? Like all our suspects are just like they have their own lives going on and their own secrets. Like that's the fun of these small towns where so many of them are set there. I think it's because it's like the gossip of a small town.
That is exactly the secrets are largely what you uncover as you go along, relating to certain individuals. And that's fine as long as the culprit is in the book at the beginning. Not well, we're in spoiler territory. So the main the murderer of Ian Veltman is in a coma on a bed, and you find out that right at the end.
Oh, so As in, after
Well,
he did the murder, he got
she's the reason that this person is murdered.
Oh, okay.
Because the lover of this person who's been in a coma has then gone out and done something to protect a secret that she's hiding.
Oh, okay.
But that all comes unraveled in the last 3 chapters, and
But
it's not alluded to.
There's not enough hints.
There's none of it. It's not. It doesn't exist in the rest of the book. The rest of the book is about
like the whole book is a red herring. The whole book is a red herring,
and it's really disappointing.
Certainly, just looking into this without having read it, it seems like there's quite a common consensus that it's like stay for the characters and the wit and the writing. The mystery and the crime itself isn't quite at the forefront. That takes secondary place. Within the book world, you get the writing, the characters, and the plot seems to be the thing that takes a background that people like. It's the least interest people have.
Yes, that I would
because of the reasons you're citing.
Just quickly give you another. This is a review that I read, and I thought it summed up everything that I think about this novel perfectly. And it's by a person called Snapdragon, and they gave it 3 stars, which is what I would give this book as well. Despite thinking Richard Osman is terrific, despite enjoying the old folk characters, despite the amiability of the gentle humour, in brackets, don't think you'll fall off your couch laughing, despite the originality of the premise, this isn't all that great. I wanted to really like it, but it somehow doesn't quite get over the hurdle. It's not a bad book by any means, and I'll give the next one a go when it comes out, but it does leave something to be desired in the plot department. Introducing important characters towards the end, it's good form in a whodunit to drop a couple of hints about the culprit that astute readers pick up, whilst the rest of us only realise we did, in fact, know something pertinent but missed it. Also, the character of Bogdan, who I haven't spoken about, is a bit too good to be true. What is nice is the former spy character Elizabeth, and I totally agree with this. The seniors getting in their groove with Skype, etc. Those elements are quite funny. Sort of like Luddites trying to get their head around the internet and using all of that sort of thing. The multicultural cast and sometimes the sly wisdom of the elderly. In short, Osman shouldn't give up, but let's hope the next one is better. And I totally agree with those that consensus. Nice. And I think that's like you said, it's largely reflected in what most people's reviews on both Goodreads, Amazon, all of those sorts of places I went and looked for. Everybody's saying the same thing. Hopefully he's taken that and used it to change it up in the second one, but I'll see. I do have the second one ready to go. So.
They seem huge hits. This feels like this is a UK reference for everyone listening. It's going to sort of be alongside Terry Pratchett and King. All the secondhand shops you go to, or the Oxfams are going to have multiple copies of all 3 of these books. Like a great, like the book of the month in the UK, and it's going to be quite cheaply priced in a WH Smith's, like $5.99 or less, and within a month it's going to be even cheaper. And it seems to have its following. I have some more book questions for you, if that's cool, Toby. One I pulled from a site because I was worried about not having enough to say. Joyce says she's very happy to be overlooked and always has been. Is that really what we get from? Do you really think that about Joyce? And does her low-key personality add anything to the team? What does she contribute to the team? She's the new character, right? She's our introduction.
She kind of, to me, feels like the comic relief, like the quiet, unassuming, bumbling, but actually quite wily, tuned in upstairs, but on the front of it is quite, the typical old frail woman, little old lady, like who's being dragged around by this almost burlish ex-spy Elizabeth. When Elizabeth does something, Joyce is the person she goes to come along.
Is she like the Shaggy? Like she's going to stumble across the clues and the bodies, but not necessarily wittingly. Like I don't know if that's a good example.
Not so much. She just is. She's the distraction. If Elizabeth wants to break into somewhere, Joyce will be the person that goes up to the front and weeps. Or puts on the act.
Right. At one point, you thought she was going to be like the unreliable narrator.
Right.
because you thought she might be the murderer.
Yes. No. Yeah. I was just that she was always there, and because I was using that analogy of it's there from TV and film detective novels, you see them and she's just front and center and always there. All right, it's going to be her. But then very quickly, not very quickly, towards the middle afterwards, I started to wane away from that.
I think it's a Poirot where it's a first person from the point of view of one of the like spectators and not Poirot. And at the end of the book, you find out it's him, which is mind-blowing. Literally, you're hearing like a first-person book with the first person in a murder mystery turns out to be the murderer. It has very mixed reviews on like, what, you've just cheated us.
Yeah.
So like, this is genius. I guess you thought it was sort of going down those paths.
Yes, largely, yeah.
My other question, maybe a bit simple, like there's 4 of the main sleuths.
Yeah.
And it seems like they each have like a superpower. If one was
in essence.
Does that come to play in the story? Like everyone gets their moment to shine. Everyone's history, as it were, and speciality gets brought to the front. Where when you're in a pub quiz, I always want to be able to answer a question no one else can answer.
That's
so
exactly
even if it's just one, I was part of this, and without you'd be down.
The pub quiz analogy is perfect. The sum of the parts make up the whole. Elizabeth is headstrong, ex-spy, has connections, enables her to get things and find out things that normal people would never be able to do. Joyce, we've already explained about. She's that sort of like the person that's put forward as the bumbling, quiet, I'm old, please help me, frail, but actually I'm quite tuned in. Abraham is a psychiatrist. So he whenever they have a sit down, let's look over the facts and pin up on a board who it could be. Could it be this person? He's the one that comes with the psychology behind everything and the reasoning of why and what and who's, and unpicks the mental states of people. And then you have Ron, who's the ex-trade union. His moment is the putting everybody together and getting them up on the hill.
It sounds like you have a sort of like the head, the heart, and the hands sort of group. I guess one more being like the rationality. One is like the streetwise one, sort of a
that's exactly it. And it does. It works very well. Like I did enjoy reading about their exploits and how they went about things, and that Joyce is like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and Elizabeth's I know Elizabeth very well now. I've been with her for a year and I know this is what she's going to do. She'll probably turn up at my doorstep at 7:30, knock on the door. We've got an adventure, and she would hire a car and we're on our way to London. Lo and behold, she wakes up at 7:30, Elizabeth's at the door. They get in a car and they're on their way to London. And it's all that that type of humor. It's very subtle and it's very gentle and it is sweet in essence, but it's just wasn't as funny
trope as of like the Miss Marple, which we're going to talk about more in a bit because of the highlight of the cozy mystery, of just the idea of old people sort of like you've got nothing left in society, you're past it, but actually they're sort of hiding in plain sight and they're unassuming and they're founding purpose. Like don't give up on them yet, society. They're still adding stuff.
Yeah, some of the other facets I liked about Elizabeth was that she just throws herself in. She's still an ex-spy. She used to have skills in the day and it was, pretty prolific at being what she is by the sense of how she is now. And she still has that youthfulness, even though her body isn't necessarily the same machine that it was. So
body's holding her back, not the mind.
Yeah. So she'll literally accost who we think at that point is going to be the killer. In almost like a dark alleyway and point a finger at and go, did you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And the killer's like, are you really asking me this in this location by yourself? Is that really a wise move, these gentle threats? And she's like, she gets herself into quite some pickles.
She certainly sounds like the leader. Like if she was to leave, would the group fall apart? Everyone's there for her. To help her, it seems.
Largely.
The premise of the book, The Thursday Murder Club, is that they meet to talk about cold cases. Is this well established before the first murder picks up? because that to me sounded really fun. And there's been several books where that was a similar idea that just doesn't really get is it one of Gillian Finn's books, like Sharp Objects, where literally ex-detectives all meet up in the attic of this nightclub, and it was just, that was quite strong on the back of the book, if memory serves, and that had didn't really, it was just a part of it but not a key part, it felt. Does that part of it feel explored, or is it actually the current murder kicks off quite soon?
That's exactly what happens. The current murder kicks off pretty soon. The only time you meet the Thursday Murder Club solving a murder is at the very beginning, just prior to the Donna DeFreyas turning up to talk about security, and they have to park their discussions and listen to this detective who's going to talk to them about security, which they brush over very quickly, and then start to prod her about the cases that they're talking about and try to get information. I think one of the reviews I read talked about the unprofessionalism of the two police officers and how unlikely it is that they would share all this information so freely. And I completely agree. It's one of those suspension of disbelief for the age of the story and vehicle.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But Richard does, in kudos in his writing, he does do those situations really well. They're very funny at times. Like the detective's quite a large guy, not Donna, the other person that comes along with her. And because Donna's not involved, she is literally, you've got to remember, she's part of this, she's in the background largely at the beginning of the book, and she wants to be involved but can't be. But because Elizabeth have contacts and the way that they work it, they end up getting her front and center on this murder case. She wasn't initially going to be involved, but because they get involved, they manage to wrangle her as part of it by blackmailing the guy.
Okay, right.
That sort of, you know, sticking their eggs in or whatever it is, sticking where it's not wanted. There's a lot of that, and when to get information out of him, they put themselves in chairs in this sort of circle when he first comes, forcing him to sit on a couch that's very small, and then Joyce will then come in and sit basically on his lap and keeps offering him cake and a cup of tea. And they give him nowhere to put it down, so he's got his hands full. And this is all a deliberate ploy to make him feel uncomfortable, which is, just comes from Elizabeth's. Comes from Elizabeth's spy nature, and it's just very cleverly written, all those sequences, and I found them to be quite funny.
Those are the little moments that make up the book and the joy to read. Quickly going back, just some of the sort of trivia stuff I have. You said someone compared it to the Marigold Hotel.
Yes, indeed.
Well, here's some little trivia. Amblin Entertainment picked up the rights, which is Spielberg's company, and currently, and I know these things often get picked up and dropped in the Hollywood industry, Ol Parker is set to write and direct. He, in fact, directed the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel 1 and 2. And I guess his other claim to fame is Mamma Mia 2. I haven't seen these, but I know of them.
I've seen them all.
Very in tow with what the film is.
He would be perfect for it. To be perfect,
given that some random reviewer said it felt like this and he's picking it up, that's kind of nice. I guess I looked more into the cozy mystery and what that is, being a subgenre of the whole crime. It feels like a sort of something that came as a reaction to Hard Boiled. Here's some of the traits of a cozy mystery. You never really see the violence. It's all off page. I guess they're safe to read for people who don't like violence. Sex and violence never happens on the page generally. And it's never really someone who's officially a policeman. Miss Marple is a prime example.
Yes.
I guess often it's someone who's going to be like a mortician, someone who has to, there's a kind of a reason why they're surrounded by death. Ish. I'm not going to lie. Something like murder shoots. There's some crime stuff where I would think it would be our crime detective because they happen to be, how many deaths happen around people who aren't involved in the goddamn police industry. A prime example of like you again. I'm going to start suspecting you because this year 5 people have died around you. So I did actually. I was out yesterday and I picked up just a random Agatha Christie. I thought I would get on board with you with the cozy mystery. And
Good. Which one did you pick up?
They do it with mirrors.
No, okay. Oh,
like I am a fan of these old school ones, like Poirot and Miss Marple, for example. It's funny. I guess I was thinking it's the only kind of book I like where the characters don't really evolve.
Yeah.
Very much like Sherlock Holmes. Like the joy is in revisiting a character, but you don't really want them to change or grow.
Yeah. No, that's true.
It's very rare in the book world. You don't want your characters to grow.
I think this group is definitely that because they've done most of their growing, I imagine.
It's funny. Came to me that a lot of quaint murder mysteries always happen in quite rich, well-to-do, idyllic villages. You think if you shift it to estates and cities, it become like basically if someone's on or below the poverty line, it stops being sort of fun,
cozy,
more real. Yeah.
Why is it
that rich middle class, like people in homes on nice roads?
Well, it's
joy in them.
Well, it's especially British version of it because it is, the floral gardens, the picket fences, it's the picket fence, isn't it? Really,
I guess it's the ironicism of this is the perfect life. And no one has the perfect life. They're all covered in dark secret.
That's tough. Yeah, that's exactly it. What was it? Blue Velvet. I think that the opening of Blue Velvet is a white picket fence, then it goes down the picket fence. At the bottom of the picket fence, there's like the rotting corpse of something that's been maggot eaten and beetles, and it's exactly that. It's exactly that.
The face shock of and the heart of.
Scratch beneath the surface, and this is what you'll find.
So you're up for giving book 2 a try? The Bullet That Missed, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
yes, and I will be definitely revisiting the Thursday Murder Club, but not in any hurry.
It sounds like a Toby thumbs up.
Yeah, it's a 3 stars.
Like you enjoyed it just because you have your issues. You enjoyed the reading. It's always nice where you can not let the things you didn't like. And I think you do a better job at me. Like I come off when we first started this podcast, and I came off as nitpicky. I wanted this sort of attitude you have, with the dark half. Like I enjoyed it very much. I have things that I didn't like about it, but that didn't necessarily massively detract from my liking the book. It's just stuff I didn't like. I can still enjoy a book and have parts of it I didn't like, or the entire plot I didn't get on with, but the characters were key as this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Perfectly put.
A fun beach read. You can turn your brain off.
Oh yeah, definitely. You don't need to inhabit a brain almost.
Nice. Listeners, what did you think? Did you dig it? Did you figure out who it was?
Sounds if you did, how?
Did you cheat by reading the
read the back page first.
And shoot us an email with thoughts.
Yes, Dogearedpagecafe @gmail.com.
Nice. Check in the little description bit for a link to that email. Who is your favorite cozy mystery detective?
Or any books that you think you'd like us to review or talk about or discuss, please let us know. Drop them in the comments.
We can go for a random listener rogue review.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be quite good fun. As long as it's not like, I don't know,
Ulysses,
the Odysseys,
and Infinite Jest. And...
what's that Tolsky or whatever his name is? The big one,
Tolstoy.
War and Peace.
I love a bit of War and Peace. Maybe we'll have to do that someday.
Oh God, that's like a year-long adventure. That for me.
Listeners,
brilliant.
Have a great day. Toby, have a great day.
You too, Scott. Thank you very much for joining us.
Catch you next time. Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.